Button.
Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scobro Show. This is Behind the Steel Curtain editor Dave Schofield coming at you. It's Tuesday night. It's just after 9 o'clock. We might have been on time if whenever I hit the start button, it would have actually worked. But anyway, we are here. We are going, and I've been looking forward to this for a very long time. With me, as always, is my big brother, Rich. Rich, how are you tonight?
We'll just in that sweet smell of victory.
Oh, we've been waiting.
Wait. That deserves a double breathe in because it was over the Ravens.
Yes, that extra deep breath. So much so you had to go back for more. Oh my goodness, that was really something. I tell you, I have to say this. I know we're a minute into the show, and I'm already going to get off on a side note. It's a Steelers side note. But one of the things I love about being a season ticket holder is, sometimes I just sell some of the tickets online, mark up the price to try to help recover stuff because it costs a lot of money up front to get the seat license and everything. But I like as anything to sell the tickets to people I know, because when people I know are in the stadium, I like to contact them. I like to see what's going on. I like to stay in touch and know what's, even when I'm not there, I feel like a part of me is there. And the fact that our sister was at this game with our nephew, then you found their picture on the Steelers Nation Unite Facebook page. If you want to know what our sister and our nephew look like, go to the Steelers Nation Unite Facebook page. Look for a picture that's
three people holding their signs saying they were from Texas. Yep, Texas.
Look for our sister and her son standing behind them with a great photo bomb. My sister is in a Ben Roethlisberger jersey, and our nephew was in a Najee Harris Color Rush.
Color Rush. Yep.
I think it was a Najee Harris Color
and
Rush.
Of course, him being a teenager, what was he doing?
He was on his phone.
And
it's funny. You're like, yeah, he is a teenager, but he's almost as tall as me. He's getting up there. But I love, like, even though I wasn't there to experience that game, knowing that I knew someone that was there in section 122 row Q, seats 16 and 17 there. I felt like I was a part of their experience because of that, even though these are the tickets that I share with my sister and brother-in-law and their family. It was just great. So I just had to say that. Those of you, out there in the live chat, if Let's Me's on here at all, anybody else, if you were at that game, good for you. I mean, I've been to 2 Ravens games at Heinz Field. Have you been to any Ravens games at Heinz Field?
No.
Okay. I am not a fan of going to the Ravens games because of where I live and everything else. The Ravens games are just extra for me, and I don't know that I could. To me, it would be too disappointing because the first game I ever went to at Heinz Field was in Ben Roethlisberger rookie season. It was the day after Christmas. I got the tickets for Christmas for my wife. Most amazing Christmas present ever. And we went the next day. They wrapped up the number 1 seed. Ben hits Plexico Burress in the corner of the end zone. It was a fantastic time. The only other Ravens game I've ever been to was the playoffs. Playoffs. 2014, I'm pretty sure, because I got my tickets in 2015. It was the year before I got my season tickets. I went, and that was when, you had the injury in week 17 to Mr. Butt Naked get robbed. And therefore, the Steelers had to sign Ben Tate off the street to start in a playoff game. And it was just, So I'm not a big fan of going to the Ravens game, but some Steelers fans, that's the one that they like. My goodness, let's talk about this game some. Now, we're going to talk about this game some, and we're going to talk about it a lot. But the theme of the show is, and the title is, Rich, tell me if you agree with this. Steelers, nice game, nice win. They still got work to do, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the biggest reason, go ahead.
Take a second, pat yourself on the back. Good, now get back to work.
Exactly. And it's not just because, oh yeah, great, you beat the Ravens, you have that big signature win for the season. It's not even that. We got a game in 2 nights. The Steelers are playing 2 nights, 48 hours from now, they're going to be on the field playing. That's crazy. So for those of you listening in audio form, this is obviously being recorded just after 9 p.m. on Tuesday, as I always say. That's why they still got work to do. The biggest win of the season so far. I mean, a lot of people would say that Buffalo win was big. Yes, it was. But this is still the Ravens. And this was the Ravens sitting at the number 1 seed in the AFC. And the Steelers were able to take them down.
And this was us, the Steelers, coming off a big dud.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the dud, the dud of duds. They were coming off this. So many fans had them written off. Lots to talk about with this game. Let's hit these couple super chats. I'm afraid I'm going to miss one because, my goodness, Sean Manahan did not even wait for the show to start. We had not gone live yet, and he puts $5 in the tip jar, and he says, after the way Adams played this week and the comments by other Steelers and coaches and the results defensively somewhat vindicated, replaced. Is that replaced? Supposed to be? Alu. Yay. Okay. Now, when he says replaced, doesn't mean, Alu, we don't need it. No. Meaning it was the closest thing that the Steelers have seen to doing the job of what Alu did so far this year. Would you say that?
Yeah, that's been Adams has been the best option to put where Alu has been. He's the best thing I've seen since Alu's come out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because what's the other way to say it? He takes up space.
He takes up space. He takes up blockers. Yeah. I mean, he defends the pass.
Yeah. How terrible was that defensive holding call?
oh my goodness. Gosh.
There was a lot of terrible calls. And of course, good old Wang Harbs is whining about the Steelers lining up off sides on the 2-point conversion. Yeah, how about the 27 different calls that were all in your favor? That's the only reason that you had a chance to go for a 2-point conversion.
You mean the 27 times they didn't call holding on the person blocking TJ Watt?
I'm not even talking about that. I'm so used to that not being called. I'm not even worried about that. But I mean, there was a lot. But that calling him, I mean, you're allowed as a defender. Your job is to not let guys go second level. I honestly think the official looked and saw what he did, and he did it so well, they felt that the only way it was possible that he held. That's the only thing you could have called. He has one arm on one guy, one arm on another, not letting either one of them go down the field. As long as he doesn't grab a hold of them and keep them from going back, you're allowed to stand in front of a guy and put your arms out. It's called blocking, and the defense does it sometimes too, so the other guys can't block people. All right? And that's what he was doing. He was occupying 2 players. He's allowed to do that. It's not a hold unless you grab a hold of him and keep him from getting past you. And he didn't do that.
I know, but I know why they threw the flag. Because honestly, when you look at that play, there's no way he should have been able to do what he was doing.
Yeah.
But he did.
He did.
And it was doing it legally. Yeah. That's the thing. The referee did, that was your pet peeve there's no way that of them not really seeing it, but them thinking, well, there's no way, so we got to throw the flag. Yeah. Right? Weren't you complaining along those lines a couple weeks ago about the referees?
Yeah.
Absolutely. The flag because they think and they saw what he was doing.
They are assuming that something is being done, so therefore you have to throw the flag. You know what? Yeah. They assumed that Joe Hayden was offsides against the Packers on the field goal because he got across so quickly. And now have the Steelers been offsides at other times on field goals? Yes, they have, but not that time. Not that time. I do like, and it's something, and like him or not like him, you have to admit Tony Romo was calling it how it was with a lot of these calls, and the head bob. He pointed out when the Steelers jumped across, they're like, "Oh, that's going to give the Ravens a first down, not kick the field goal," and they called them for the false start. He's like, "Watch his head."
We got to look. We got to watch the head bob, and then they even said, "Watch the next one. If the head doesn't bob on the next one, then you know that they made the right call."
He did it on purpose, and they knew that he did something that he doesn't do.
Yep.
And therefore he's not allowed to do it.
And
That was
I
all about trying to draw him off.
Yeah.
And that's old Wanghard trying to cheat to win, and it didn't work for him. So, yeah. Yep. Got another super chat here. Justin Gall, $4.99 to tip jar. Thank you. Says amazing beer there live. All right, another one who was there for the game. Didn't realize how bad the officiating was until I watched TV version today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it's definitely easier to pick out the officiating flaws on TV than it is at the game.
Yeah.
Not saying you can't pick some out at the game, but it's a lot. I'm serious. It's a lot easier to pick them out on TV.
Yeah.
At least in my opinion.
It is. And honestly,
I have an easier time.
When I'm at the game, I'm most of the time relying on the board, on the jumbotron, on the video replay and things like that to see the angles that you would see at home. That's part of the reason I like my seats is I can see the board and the field at the same time because it's right there where I am. So, but there was a lot of questionable calls, but you know what? The Steelers overcame it. And I have several things. I wrote down a number of things as I thought about random stuff today about this game. I'm like, oh, we should talk about this. And the problem is I know I thought of more than when I didn't have my paper next to me that I didn't get to write down. Maybe they'll come to me. Maybe they won't. But I want to dive into this a little bit because a couple things.
Dave, you don't dive.
I don't dive. I belly flop.
Maybe a cannonball.
Maybe a cannonball. I'm still saying if I ever was able to pull off going on the Steelers cruise, I do think I could possibly give one Casey Hampton a run for his money as the all-time best belly flopper on the Steelers celebrity cruise. I think, I mean, I've had it, I got it down to a pretty good science. Hurts like the Dickens, but I will say I could do it if it was for something like that. But anyway, we got another super chat before I roll into these points of order. Okay. Sean Manhan, $5 again. Thank you, Sean. He says, getting an 08 vibe,
from bad O-line.
Okay. See, I don't know these shorthand things. I'm not with it with all the hip youngsters. So I got to call on the guy in higher ed to know what this is.
Thank you. Yep.
All right. From bad O-line, Ben delivering in fourth quarter, defensive player of the year at OLB, tough schedule, coming together as a team. Let's get number 7 for number 7. I like that. And that's something, you know what? We'll go ahead and say it now because we're like, the Steelers got work to do. They've got work to do because this was great. But what they showed is that when you put in the work, you put in the effort, you show the heart, you can put a good product on the field with what they have. Are they perfect? No. Are they always necessarily going to be better than the team they are facing? No. But the better team doesn't always win. The team that comes through when they need to is the team that's going to win. So I was going to wait till after this game because then the Steelers would have 4 left, which is generally what you think of. If you want to look at who's going to be the top teams going into the postseason, those are the games you look at. Those last 4 games, what we always looked at is the last quarter of the season when there were 16 games going into the postseason. I mean, look at last year. Look at what happened with the Steelers. Even when they got great wins, like the big win over Tennessee in Tennessee, the shellacking of the Browns, things like that, it wasn't happening at the right time of the season. And as much as you're like, this Steelers team is a work in progress, they've got to keep working in order to keep the progress. Do you think that's a good way to say it?
Well, yeah, because they have not progressed to the point where you can be like, okay, they've reached where they're going to be. No.
Okay.
They're not. Yeah. They haven't left it all on the field yet.
No. They haven't put together a full game.
Yep.
And on both sides of the ball because there was a lot lacking offensively. And you can say there was a lot lacking defensively. You're like, oh man, this team, they're just 99.5-yard drive. They can't get the stop. My goodness, how many 3rd and longs are they going to give up? then I'm going to bring up one of these talking points. I had 3 of them that I could have used in the last 3 sentences.
You snagged this one out of the Slack channel.
No, you don't know if I did or not. Okay,
yes.
Are you ready? Now I got to remember which one because I had 3 of them. What were we talking? Oh, statistically, I picked the Steelers not to win this game. I wanted to change it so bad when I knew TJ Watt was coming back. That's another thing we're going to talk about. I went with the numbers because the Ravens averaged 24 points. The Steelers averaged giving up 24 points. The Steelers averaged 21 points. The Ravens averaged giving up 21 points. So I went 24-21. I wanted to change it because I thought Watt could make a difference. I said, no, I'm just going to go with the numbers. So that way I would love for the numbers to be wrong. But if you look at the numbers, the Steelers offense basically came up with what they had numbers wise on average. They scored 20 points. They had been averaging 21. It was the defense.
Oh, and they would have had 21.
Well, no, because they wouldn't have gone for 2.
Well, maybe.
Yeah. They wouldn't have gone for 2 there. But it was the defense that actually kept the Ravens 5 points less than the Ravens average of what the defense, had given up on average. So as much as you want to complain about the defense, giving up a lot of yards and the defense letting them come down and they got the touchdown at the end and it came down to the 2-point conversion, all that, it was still the defense that did better than what they were expected coming into the game if you were going by the numbers. Doesn't that seem kind of weird when you think back at it? Because that's not the way it felt, was it?
No.
Yeah.
Which leads into what I thought you were going to snag out of the Slack channel, and that was the talk of what we feel the defensive philosophy was for the Steelers the other day. And the defensive philosophy is what gave up some of those longer first downs and longer drives. But I think the whole defensive scheme, we were playing zone pretty much the whole game.
Yeah.
And that was so our defenders could have eyes into the backfield so that we didn't let, Lamar Jackson run for 220 yards against us.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
And I still love this stat. In the fourth quarter, the Ravens had 4 rushing yards on 2 attempts.
Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, I'm going to bring this one up.
Okay.
Jeffrey picked the Steelers. Dave, you're voted off the island. Guess what? Steelers Pittsburgh, you got to vote me off the island. I picked the Ravens to win by 10 points. And basically that was because the Ravens are a running team, and I feel they're a better team than the Cincinnati Bengals. And we all saw what the Cincinnati Bengals did run the ball against our defense. And at that point in time, when it's been as bad against the run as we've been the past few games, I'm like, you know what? Till you show me otherwise, what am I to not expect that I'm not going to see the same thing I've seen for 3 games?
I mean, I'm honestly, if you pick the Steelers to win, you pick the upset. Like, I picked the Steelers to cover when I had to do our picks for all the games.
Right.
I picked them to cover. I just didn't know if they would win. And I said that I thought that I didn't think Baltimore was that great, but I didn't think the Steelers were playing that great either. But the Steelers were played much better. But I thought it was interesting that, everyone's like, oh, well, the offense, they did a real nice job, and the defense almost didn't come through. It was actually the defense that did better statistically in point-wise than what you expected going into the game than the offense. Bottom line is, that's that, man. Sean, we just bringing it in another $5. Okay. You know what?
I'm almost to the point where we're going to have to find out what Sean Manahan does for a living, because maybe I need to do that so I can keep throwing money in the super chat.
I'm surprised he keeps doing 5. I thought it would be 2 because he has a lot to say. But he's $5 in the tip jar. Says when the Bengals ran over us, we didn't have a true nose tackle. That's a good point. And honestly, look, but that was the game that the Steelers tried Cam Hayward at nose, and they benched Isaiah Buggs. So they benched Buggs before Adams was even on the team, and then, people are like, well, why did Carlos Davis get activated if he wasn't going to dress with it? I still think Davis being activated to the 53-man roster on Saturday was, hey, we expect Cam Hayward to play. We expect Isaiah Loudermilk to play with the illness, but if something happens where they get worse, we at least have somebody else. We at least have somebody else up there we could call on.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what that was.
And they're like, yeah, and we'll have them back on the roster and inactive. They were going to have to put him on the roster this week anyway.
Yes.
I think tomorrow would have been the 21st day. They had him till like tomorrow. So, and that's kind of what the Steelers have done so far when they brought players back. Even when they had him inactive the first game. But man, Adams, jumped on the moving train, did a nice job, didn't get pushed around.
That's the biggest thing. That was the biggest thing.
Pushed around. But if you want to talk about pushing around, let's talk about the Steelers' offensive line. I got another point here. I've got the circle of success. Okay, this is my little circle of success. Here's the thing with the circle. Like a circle, no beginning and no end. Sorry, I'm thinking of what is it? And Chuck and Larry, was that Rob Schneider? It's like a circle. Yes. Sorry. There's no beginning, there's no end. So pick a starting point. You ready? But it's this. Let's start with the captain. Let's start with BTR. Let's start with Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger. If Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger gets the passing game going, that's where I want to end it that way. I want to end it there. We'll start there. You can start anywhere. I don't know what to start. I don't want to know my point. Okay, if Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger can be successful throwing the ball, what that does is will likely take an extra player out of the box. If you take the other team being able to load extra players in the box, that allows the offensive line to actually match up and not be outnumbered. If the offensive line is able to match up and not be outnumbered, they can get the running game going. If the running game gets going, then it actually makes it easier for the offensive line to pass block, which then allows Ben Roethlisberger to get the passing game going, which then takes the extra player out of the. You see the circle that I made there? That it's like passing game, helps the run blocking, which helps the running game, which helps the pass blocking, because then you got play action, everything that's working well there, and it just works in a perfect circle. It's got to start somewhere so it can work everywhere else. And so many times early in the season, I'm like, teams are loading up the box trying to stop Najee Harris because they're saying Ben can't beat us anymore. Ben's got to make them pay.
Right.
And Ben was making the pay. Do you think the best ball he's thrown all season went for an incompletion?
What's that?
Do you think the best ball that he has thrown all season was in this game Sunday and it went for an incompletion?
Yes.
That was a fantastic throw to Deontay Johnson.
Yes, it was. It was maybe I should rephrase. It's the best deep ball.
Yes.
He has thrown.
Yes.
It's the best deep ball Ben has thrown was in this game. It was right where it needed to be.
And not only that, for those critics out there, it was deep middle.
Yeah.
It was deep middle, because we still had people trying to say, oh, Ben won't throw the ball in the middle. What about that one? What about the first touchdown to Deontay? That was in the middle. So he actually did throw the ball in the middle of the field, but doing what he could do in the passing game just helped everything else go. So sometimes you're saying you've got a rookie running back, you've got how many rookies starting on the offensive line. Maybe the good starting point of that circle is the 39-year-old veteran. If he can get the passing game going, help open things up to then to help them be able to block better for the running game, which gets the running game going, which allows them to pass block better for him, which helps Ben keep the passing game going. I just thought they completed the circle this game. Offensive line. I'll just ask you this, even this, and John LeGlue. Gotta love that. Tell me about the offensive line from this game, Rich. What did you think?
Oh man, the biggest thing, especially LeGlue when he came in. LeGlue, basically, I could say the same thing we just said about Adams.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But
He didn't get pushed.
He didn't get pushed around. He pushed around.
Correct.
Yeah.
He was more the bully, not the person being bullied. It was. I mean, I was. First of all, he's in the game, and I see him, and I'm like, who's that number? And I see LeGlue on the back, and I'm like, who the heck's this guy?
He was signed to the active roster the week before.
Yeah. I know. And so then I started to watch him a little bit, like specifically on some plays, watching him, and I was like, dude, this guy's solid.
You don't remember him from the preseason? I remember him from the preseason.
I do, but I started to, but like not a ton. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the preseason. We were trying to look at a lot of stuff this preseason.
You are exactly right. But see, this is why I remember from the preseason, because Jeff and I constantly do, predicting the 53-man roster. And then I do the practice squad. Jeff won't, because he doesn't want to go that far and everything. But I do it because a lot of people ask for it. And they would like it. I picked him to go on the practice squad because he was playing well. I'm trying to look it up right now in the preseason because he's listed as a tackle. 6'7", 310 out of Tulane. He's listed as a tackle.
The Green Wave.
But yeah, that's right. But because there was some injuries during camp, Coach Tomlin talked about this in his press conference. And I'm like, I'm glad he brought this up because I remember. There was some injuries during camp and they needed some help on the interior. Remember, Kevin Dotson was, what the stuff he was going through and everything else. So he, in practice, bumped into the inside, and that's where they played him. That's where they played him in the preseason. He played 35 snaps at right guard in the Hall of Fame game. But here's the other thing people forget. He played center in the Philly game. He played center at the end of the game.
You're right. I forgot about that.
He played 18 snaps. He played right guard, then he played center, then he played 2 games at left guard in the preseason and looked decent. And I'm like, I think this guy can make the team. And not the team, but like make the practice squad. He seems like a decent developmental lineman. And they did. They kept him on the practice squad. And when it came around, I was surprised that it was LeGlue and not Rashad Coward that was added to the 53-man roster last week. But then again, I was surprised that it wasn't Rashad Coward again this week when they had to do a practice squad elevation. It was Chaz Green again. But when they did Green and not Coward, who was on the active roster the first 4 games for the Steelers, I'm like, they must feel all right with LeGlue. And he looked to look good. Okay. He did. I have to make a confession though. When I saw that number 77 out there, I instantly was thinking of Marcus Gilbert. I really did. I seen a big 77 out there. I'm like, yeah, that does make me miss, Marcus Gilbert when he was having great seasons and should have been considered for a Pro Bowl and wasn't when he was with the Steelers. He got injured. They traded him. I don't know if he ever even played for the Cardinals for 2 years before he retired, but he's retired now. I do miss that guy. I have to admit, I always liked him as a lineman. But LeGlue, nice job. Trey Turner, I did this in the PFF grade article. He had his best grade since, was it week 1 of 2019 or something, I think, which was a Pro Bowl season for him.
I thought with Turner, the biggest thing I noticed during the game was that at one point, I want to say it was about halfway through the 4th quarter, what I noticed about Turner was that I hadn't noticed him.
Yeah.
I was like, I haven't thought much of Turner. I said, well, he's probably doing okay then, because I haven't, it hasn't been like, oh, look, somebody blew by him or,
Yeah. And I mean, Dan Moore Jr. had I looked this up before the grades were available from last night's game, but he had the 6th best pass blocking grade according to PFF for the week. That's not just of tackles, that's of all offensive linemen. That Dan Moore Jr. did a real nice. I mean, he was going up against what I can't even say his name right. The rookie from the Owe. Is it Owe or no? I think it's Owe is the way you really say it.
Correct.
He went up against him all game, and you didn't hear him.
What was the injury? What was the injury he came out for the one play? I never even heard.
Oh, it was on. I'm not sure where he was.
Remember,
the play before Finney.
Yeah. He got hurt, comes off, goes in a tent.
Yeah.
And has only got one play.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I got to write this article. No, okay. I'm like, well, I guess this is Banner coming in. Nope, he came out and was good. And I thought he did a nice job.
He did.
In the game. Chooks is becoming more solid because you're not – one of the best things a right tackle can do is not be noticed, and the only sack they gave up wasn't even a real sack. It was a semi-busted play because Ben on the RPO, Ben kept the ball. Claypool wasn't on the same page. Again, that was, there was plenty to go with that, shouting match. I think it was because of Ben that Claypool wasn't in there for a while.
I think so too, because Claypool was not making the correct.
He wasn't making the right reads
on his option routes.
Yeah, and he wasn't ready for the pass and did what he should have done on that play. So Ben had no choice but to tuck the ball and dive for the line of scrimmage to just not take a loss. And therefore, it was one sack for 0 yards.
One sack for 0 yards.
Whoever was standing closest, it happened to be Calais Campbell. So. Yeah, it was. I felt that the offensive line came together, and like I'm trying to think of who pointed it out. It might have been one Jefferson Hartman on Let's Ride, or it might have been Jeffrey Benedict. I can't remember. It was one of those podcasts I listened to. That he was having to deal with some interior Baltimore defensive linemen, which is still the strength of their line there. So. With guys like Leglue, I thought in all the offensive line did the job they needed to. Did the Steelers run the ball like crazy? No. Could they run the ball at the end of the game when they needed to? Yeah. Against the number 2 run defense? Absolutely. Job well done. But guess what? It's not done.
There's still work to do.
There's still work to do. We're going to talk about more of that work that we have to do. My goodness, I didn't even look at the clock. We are done with part 1. We're rolling into part 2. We got more work to talk about because, 48 hours, going to be playing a game. So we'll talk about that. Going to talk a little bit about a couple things I want to mention about TJ Watt. And we're going to talk about some coaching strategy and, purposeful penalties. We're going to have to make sure we bring that one up in the second half. So if you're here on the audio side, go ahead and flip to part 2. If you're with us on YouTube or Facebook Live, hold on. We'll be back in just a few seconds. Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to part 2 of the Scobro Show. This is Behind the Steel Curtain editor Dave Schofield, still coming at you here on Tuesday night. With me as always, it was so sweet, you got to do it again, my big brother Rich. Rich, how are you?
We're still breathing in that sweet smell.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Absolutely. Big game coming up. Big game. They just finished. Every game's a big game for the Steelers.
It's one of those where, as I said in part 1, I in the staff picks article, I'd pick the Steelers not to win this game. I really, I didn't. Does that mean I wasn't sitting there rooting my tail off for the Steelers? I just kept saying, the whole game, I just kept saying, we're still in it. We're still in it. We're still in it. And then it was finally like, yes. Okay. And then it was like, no. And then it was like, oh crap, they're going for 2.
Yep. It was so nice to be pacing around my living room again and jumping up and down and, pulling the terrible towel around my neck is what I do when I'm nervous and everything else.
I'd rather have the heart attacks than what we had the week before.
Exactly. They're like, oh, this team puts me through so much. You know what? I'd rather be put through so much than to be sitting there in the middle of the second quarter. And I'm like, this
game is over.
This is done. I might as well get some work done. It's pretty bad when I can start writing dud of the week in the third quarter. Things of that nature. So yeah, it was. I got to bring up Sean took my advice because he likes to. I'm like, if you want to drop more comments in there with super chats, only give $2. But Sean Manhan, $2 in the tip jar. He's like, Steelers, 37 sacks, Vikings, 36 sacks, 1 versus 2. I knew the Steelers moved up to 1 with 37. I was still compiling my stats for Stat Geek, and that is correct. The Vikings have 36 sacks. So that's going to be an interesting matchup to look at on Thursday night. It really is. The Steelers' offensive line they'll be tested with that. The other thing I want to look at as much as anything is how much do they surrender. So that, and I talk about that on my Stat Geek. So that's definitely something that you'll hear Thursday morning if that's something that you like to tune into. It'll be there, just so you know. Rich, I've hit 2 of my 5 main points that I had from this past game that I'm just like, we got to talk about this. Okay, here's a quick one. You ready?
Yes, Yes, I was going to say we need to go a little more rapid fire with him.
Deontay Johnson and the game that he had, where he went from the drop, and you're like, depending on your source, that was either his first or his second drop of the season.
Right.
For a 4-point drop, turns around, catches 8 balls out of the other 10 passes he was thrown. Some of them were before that one, for over 100 yards. I think it was 108 and 2 touchdowns. Okay. Deontay Johnson did in that game exactly what the Steelers needed to do. And that was, when you look at their last couple game stretch, take the bad play that you had and put it behind you and come out and show what you could do. Yeah. And that's exactly what the Steelers needed to do. They needed to shake off what happened in Cincinnati the week before and come out here against Baltimore and show what they could do. And they did. Did we really have that much confidence that they would? I knew deep down that they could. The question is, what was the likelihood that they would do it? That's what it really came down to.
I didn't know if they could do enough to get a W.
Yeah. That, you know what? You basically summed up what I was saying before. I think the Steelers would play better. I just didn't know that it would be enough to get a win. So, yeah. So that's just some interesting stuff. Thought I'd throw that one out there. Here's another one. Okay. I talked about that. I want to save that one. There's some people. Now I'm going to say it. Live chat. This is not you, because this was something that happened. Now, it could be you, maybe if you're out there, but I'm talking about like out in Steelers world, Steelers Twitter, which sometimes can really bring you down. Everyone the cool thing to do was for Steelers fans to run down the Steelers. I talked about in the preview that I'm like, I'm sorry, you ask out the love of your life, this gorgeous girl, and when she rejects you, next thing you know, she's ugly and not very nice. Okay. Yeah. Just because you feel rejected. That's how we were rejected by the Steelers in their performance before. Okay. Don't be like that. You're so afraid that other people are going to tell you as a Steelers fan how bad your team is. So you want to beat them to the punch to tell them how bad it is. And then you take it next level. Reports come out that Ben Roethlisberger is expecting this to be his last season, which we all kind of felt was going to happen anyway. It wasn't,
I know the way they,
water is wet.
I was going to say the way they redid his contract, we started talking about that way back in the summer then.
But people were saying, well, what if Ben really does want to come back? And, you just never knew. But still, he never used the R word. It was when he said about not being back, he wasn't saying it was, the report did not say it was by his choice. It was just the way things were going to be and the way things were going to work out. But that's a whole different story. But we put that article out there and things like that. And people were like, oh, I mean, they just wanted to completely tear him to pieces. I'm like, think about everything that you did have with Ben. I mean, when you're talking about calling it a career, you should be thinking about the whole career and not just the last 2 games. You know what I'm saying? That was kind of bad. The thing that got me, I kind of always had at the back of my mind, I'm like, everyone's saying TJ Watt's out, but the Steelers are not. So the beat reporters are saying, oh, TJ Watt's not going to be available. I'm like, Coach Tomlin never said it. None of the coaches ever said it. They aren't saying they expect him, but no one's ruling him out. And I'm like, no one said that he's had symptoms. I wouldn't be surprised if he can get the 2 tests to come back.
When Friday rolled around and nothing was being said, I'm like, I bet you he got a negative test Friday.
Oh, and
then next thing you know, it came out he got a negative test, just had to pass one more, and he was in. I was like,
I thought he might have had 2 by Friday, and here's why: because in typical Steelers beat writers fashion, they were kind of being eerie about something going on. I'm like, is it good or is it bad? I'm like, if it's good, it's because TJ's back. I started to get an article ready about TJ coming back. Then to find out what it was that Cam Hayward wasn't at practice because he was sick. Okay. So I'm like, well, that article's no good. And I chucked it. Little did I realize a few hours later, I needed it again because that's when the whole positive test came out. So there was that, but I couldn't get over when the report came out finally on Saturday that TJ Watt was playing. How many Steelers fans out there on the toxic Steelers Twitter thought that it didn't matter? Thought that the team was too far gone and, oh, he played terrible last week, it's not going to matter. And I was not
just that, but I saw people that said, you know what? Just rest in. Because we're playing for draft picks now anyway.
But there was a lot of people on Twitter that were saying Cam Hayward was out. I'm like, he didn't practice, but he wasn't even on the injury report.
Yep.
If you think there's a chance he's not playing, they got to put him as questionable. And they're like, nope, he's going to be fine by Sunday. And
I pointed that out because, when I lived in Virginia, or, I was part of Facebook group, no, I lost the name of it. Whatever this,
the Hampton
Roads. Yeah. Anyway, someone had posted on there about, and Cam's out, and I had to come in and say, no, nothing says Cam's out yet. He didn't practice Friday, listed as an illness, but he has no game designation, so the option for him to play is still there because they would have at least had to list him as questionable.
And they didn't expect him
to
move him into the questionable category on Saturday, which they could have done, and they did not. But that all comes out, and I was really upset about the whole TJ Watt downplaying the importance of the game. I put out a tweet out there, and I'm just like, for those of you saying, oh, well, we didn't play well, he's a 2-time finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. If TJ Watt's on the field, even if TJ Watt wasn't, you didn't know how much of a TJ Watt you were going to get. Guess what? We got a really good TJ Watt.
Yes, we did.
And there's a Steelers Vertex going to be out at 10 a.m. on Wednesday morning about that. Okay? But with myself and Jeffrey Benedict, will we do that? Got a really good TJ Watt on Sunday. But even if you didn't, that has to change what the Ravens were doing. If Taco Charlton is starting in place of TJ Watt, guess what the Ravens are going to do? They're going to go at Taco Charlton. But TJ Watt's right there. They're going to go away from TJ Watt. It changes what they want to do. And wouldn't you, Alex Highsmith went from, you're going to be the number 1 outside linebacker, and they're going to go away from you, to now, all right, guess what? They're going to be coming at you. You got to be ready for it.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
And his run defense on Sunday was...
I thought it was fantastic, but he got a terrible run grade from PFF.
Yeah, I'm not sure why, because he was tackling for loss. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, we got super chats. Let's get them.
Yeah, okay. We got super chats. Sorry. You got that one. Sean Mann at $2 again. Hey, see, I'm telling you what to do, letting you get more words in there. He says, in the word of T.O., Ben's my quarterback. Yep. That's my quarterback. So you got to say it the right way, the way he tried to type it in. The other one, we got Steel Dog 88 here, $5 in the tip jar. Thank you. It says, get mad at the decision Ben makes, but not at the legacy of Ben. Yeah. Whether you're talking about off-field stuff or just how things are playing out the end, the thing is, but because you're frustrated with the season, don't poo-poo on who is arguably the greatest quarterback for the franchise has ever seen. Go ahead, Rich.
you can say about any quarterback on it, any great quarterback on any team. At some point in time, they're going to go, everybody's going to have peaks and valleys.
Mm-hmm.
When they're going through the valleys, pick on them for their play currently, or as Steel Dog says here, their decisions at that point in time, not, oh, they suck. Well, no, they made some bad decisions in a game. What if they fix it for the next game? Boom. Mm-hmm. There you go. So,
yeah. Yep. So I was just,
what do you still got one on your list?
I do.
Don't you?
Oh yeah, I got one more on my list. I wanted to say this.
Let's get to it.
But I just wanted to say that for those of you that you were so down on the Steelers that you were downplaying the return of TJ Watt, I have to say is I hope you got a reality check. Now, we know this game doesn't change everything. This isn't like I don't want to be like those people in or last season that thought when the Steelers came back in the second half against the Colts that everything was miraculously fixed. That wasn't the case, and that's not the case here. That's hence the title of the show, which is what, Rich?
The Steelers still have work
to do. You can't take this game and say, "Oh, well,
everything's great
now." Yep. No, what got you there was hard work, and as I like to say, playing hard. Okay, you got to play hard. You got to keep it up. You've shown what you can do. So if you don't play, I'm not saying you have to play perfect. I mean, like the Steelers didn't have any turnovers. Sometimes fluky things are going to happen. But the week before, you didn't play hard. You just looked like you weren't playing hard and that you had no heart. Okay, if you go back to that, you show what kind of player you really are, individually and collectively, as Coach Tom likes to say. Let's hit this last point. I wanted to look up the exact time that was left in the game. I'll get it as we're talking, but it is believed that the Baltimore Ravens intentionally jumped off sides at the end of the game when the Steelers were getting down close to scoring. I'm trying to find the exact play. I'll get it here in a second.
2nd and 2.
I knew it was 2nd and 2. I wanted to tell you how much time was left because that was going to be important.
48.
It was coming out of the 2-minute warning. It was coming out of the 2-minute warning. Okay, that and they probably decided at the 2-minute warning that it was 2nd and 2 on the 13. That they're like, oh, if the Steelers get the first down and not, let's say they get it on the next play, and then they can run 40 seconds off, or we've got to use a timeout, or they don't get on that play and they have to run another play and more time comes off. We have to use another. They're going to have a chance to run down the clock and possibly kick the field goal with no time left, being short. So they decide to, without taking any time off the clock, to jump off sides, give the Steelers the 5 yards, the first down, which then makes it 1st and goal from the 8. The question that was posed to me in an email, and it was a good question, but remember, this is also a question with hindsight. So you also got to think about it in the moment. The question was, should you have declined the penalty? If they were wanting to give you the yards, to give you the first down, to save it, do you decline the penalty? Good question, isn't it? If they want to play that mind game, do you play it back? It's kind of, while you're thinking about it, I'm just for everyone else out there, it's kind of like when the team, are they going to go for it on 4th and 3 at the, right at the 50-yard line? They're lining it up. They're trying to get them to jump off sides. They're going to burn a timeout. No, they're going to take a delay a game. Sometimes you take the delay a game to give your punter a little bit more room. And sometimes the delay game gets declined because they don't want to give your punter more room. Should they have declined this penalty? And some people were saying, looking back at how everything played out, it's easy to say yes.
Correct. But I take the penalty because I get the first down to get the first and goal.
Exactly. I say in that moment, what happens?
There's no guarantee you convert the first down, in which point in time then it's done the same thing.
What happens if on the next play you jump off sides or you get called for a penalty? You get called for a hold or an offensive pass interference or something crazy like that happens. Now, is that living in your fears? Sure. My thing is, when in the NFL do you ever decline a penalty that gives you a first down? Okay, that is extremely rare. The only time you ever take points off the board is if it's going to give you a first down. Like if you kick a field goal and there's a penalty, you're declining that penalty unless it gives you a first down. You got a chance to get more. Go ahead.
If we decline that, and then we do not end up scoring a touchdown, and we lose that game, all we would hear is fire Tomlin.
That's what I said in the response when I was asked this question. That I said, think of what happens otherwise. If you decline that penalty because you think they're trying to, everyone would have been like, why in the world would they decline that penalty? Why would you decline that penalty? If you do that and then you don't get the first down and you kick the field goal, everybody's like, what? Even the reason you take that penalty is you are still 8 yards from the goal line. And Baltimore was just basically saying, you know what, rather than defend 12 yards, we still feel comfortable defending 8 and and only having to do it for 3 plays rather than to have to defend 12 for 4 or 5 plays. That was what they were saying. They still were not going to give up, not give up that touchdown. You know what I'm saying?
Now, the other thing I wondered too, was it so much that they deliberately jumped off sides saying, oh, guys, we're going to go jump off sides? Or was it guess the snap count? If you guess wrong, nothing hurt.
That might have been it. That could have just as easily been it. So, but notice what they also did. They were going to do it in a way where it wasn't a free play.
Yes.
That it was going to be an unabated to the quarterback. They have to blow it dead. Because they didn't want to just jump off sides and give the Steelers the free play. And then if they score the touchdown, then you're like, oh, well, but then they would have had more time. But it was they didn't want to give up the touchdown, but they did want to save some time. And I understand why it was a good strategy, but at the same time, if you're on offense, you have to say you don't take it for granted. When you can get the extra set of downs, you get the extra set of downs. So, but that was just a good question.
It's a great strategy question. Yeah. Honestly, there's no right answer. There's only the right answer with whatever decision you made.
Yeah.
And luckily for the Steelers, they made the decision. They took it. They scored the touchdown, which to me was huge.
Yes.
Getting the touchdown was huge.
The touchdown was huge.
The 2-point conversion
was just as important. Because I'm like, they have to get this conversion. They have to get this conversion. Because I didn't want them not getting it. And then,
but the first thing was the touchdown was huge because the touchdown took the Ravens' best player, in my opinion, out from winning the game.
And Justin Tucker.
Yes.
Now, I'm glad you said it the way you did because I was worried that you were going to say because the touchdown did take out one of their best defenders for the season. Because it was on the touchdown play that Marlon Humphrey tore his pec trying to keep Deontay Johnson from being able to dive in the end zone. So, he was it's terrible that a player gets injured like that, but man, he was going for it. He was trying to keep him out and it ended up getting hurt. So, I don't like when players get hurt. I really don't. I don't care who you cheer for. So that was interesting. The 2-point conversion and the call there. One other strategy question just to follow up before we get on to this week.
Sure.
Mike Tomlin called timeout before the 2-point conversion. Normally, I would scream my head off at that. Not this time. What do you
No.
think of the timeout for the 2-point conversion?
It was needed this time.
Was it just me, or was it Cam Hayward they were trying to get on the field? I thought that's who was on the sideline trying to run in, having to run back, wasn't going to get out there.
Correct.
I'm like, if you've got to call timeout to get Cam Hayward on the field, call timeout to get Cam Hayward on the field.
Correct.
And then, of course, they're whining about that he was lined up offsides, but we're not going to go right back in.
No, we're not even going to get into that
at all. And Steelers pessimists are going to continue to say, oh, well, the Steelers got lucky on stopping that 2-point conversion. You know what? They made their own luck. TJ Watt disrupted the play. That was a brilliant play call, by the way.
Oh, it was.
I mean,
we got to talking about it in the Slack channel. That we got talking about in the Slack channel. Who threw up the tape? Jeffrey,
put it up. And the question was, who was responsible for Andrews? He was needed for a film room. We were trying to figure out. And a lot of people were blaming Devin Bush. A lot of people were blaming Terrell Edmonds. But if you really look at it, it was probably Minkah Fitzpatrick.
It was probably Minkah Fitzpatrick.
So, I don't, normally I told this story on, oh my goodness, I think it was the press conference recap podcast, that the final play I ever coached in high school was defending a 2-point conversion, to where if it was for a tie and not for the win the other team was going for. Don't ask about the situation that set up that play. But anyway, their best player had just ran about 130 total yards in order to score a touchdown with no time on the clock, and couldn't stay on the field. And I said to the coach, the defensive coordinator said, if you need it, use it. If you don't, play it. He's like, I'm not letting them get set. We're ready to play this. And not only did we stop the 2-point conversion, we got it for a 5-yard loss. It was fantastic. So sometimes you don't want to use that. But in this case, I think they made the right call.
Yes, because you got to have Cam Hayward on the field.
You got to have Cam Hayward on the field.
Correct.
Now, anything else you want to say? Okay, go ahead.
I do want to say just a couple quick things about the missed 2-point conversion by Baltimore. Okay. Mm-hmm. The design of their play was every as good or even better than the one the Steelers had run, a couple of minutes before. Okay. Yeah. It was a great design, and it got their guy open. The reason the play did not succeed for Baltimore was because TJ Watt is a freak.
Yeah. They were optioning him. That was the option. Is Watt going to go with Edwards? Not Edwards. Andrews. Sorry. Was Watt going to go with Andrews, or was he going to go after the quarterback? If he goes with the tight end, Lamar's running that in. If he goes after Lamar, he's throwing it to Andrews.
Yes.
But the problem was
TJ made him change his arm angle.
Yeah.
Yep. Changed the arm angle, which then changed the trajectory of the ball, which made it so that it was close.
Yes, it was.
Too close for my comfort.
Yep.
But, Andrews then wasn't able to come up with it.
But I mean, there's so many plays in there that you're like, oh, that's the one play. There's how many one plays do you get? That was a 3rd down play where they connected to Deontay Johnson to dive into the touchdown zone to score that one. The Steelers had to convert their own 2-point conversion on one play in order to make that worthwhile. The one play where DJ dropped the ball in the first half, that was a 4-point play. There's a bunch of one plays that make up a game. A missed extra point. You know what I'm saying? So many one plays make up a game. So we're going over a little bit tonight, but that was a lot. That was a big game, so there was a lot to talk about.
Yeah, there was. There almost always is when you have good, close games with Baltimore.
Yeah, and I don't like the fact that Minnesota's coming off of losing to the Lions. But then again, when the Steelers came off of tying the Lions, they gave up 41 points the next game. So I watched the end of that game because I wanted to see Minnesota because, they were playing the 1:00 game and the Steelers game wasn't on yet. So I was watching that. That was crazy. So the Steelers travel to Minnesota. When it comes to this game, and I've said this several times. I think I said it at the post game. I've said it to other people. So if you've heard it before, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but some of you might not have heard this. So I did not pick the Steelers to win this game when the schedule came out. The reason was I looked at it and I said, yikes, you got to play the Ravens, which is usually a game that even if guys aren't out for the season, that people are banged up. And then you've got to turn around and play on the road on Thursday after playing the Ravens. That's asking too much. But man, oh man, did this team come out of this game about as healthy as can be.
Yeah.
I mean, BJ Finney early, but I still think you got a better game out of the glue than you would have had out of Finney.
Yep, probably.
Okay. And then so much so nobody else, when the Steelers actually took the practice field on Tuesday, Monday's injury report was estimated because they didn't practice, but they still have to do 3 for the game. They practiced on Tuesday. Everybody was full except the 2 players that missed the game and Finney who left the game. Everybody else was full. What more can you ask for coming out of a Ravens game? I just can't believe that this is the scenario going into Thursday. Do you think that play comes into play?
Yes, because what do we have going on for the Vikings?
Well, here's the thing that's shocking.
Yes.
Do you know that Dalvin Cook was a limited participant in practice today?
Was he really?
Yes,
Man.
he was. My question is, are they pulling a Russell Wilson?
Where
Remember
he's
how
going to be
Russell Wilson showed up limited against the Steelers when
Yeah.
they were practicing that week? You know, they thought Cook would go on the IR. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of like Joe Hayden. Even if Joe Hayden was close, it's hard to come back when you miss a game when it's the short week. If you can get through, you're better off trying to come back after the extended rest afterwards. Do you think they're just messing with the Steelers? Or do you think there's a chance he plays?
There could be a chance he plays.
Yeah.
Because the way we just came off a game that said we had to win, they're now coming up against a game that they probably feel they have to win.
Yeah. Well, I think they're 5-7, but they're still only
but in the NFC they're not out of it.
They're 1 game out of the last playoff spot, right? Isn't it 6-6? Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah. So they're up against it. Steelers, they're up against it. They're going on the road. I'm going to talk about Thursdays on my Stat Geek. I used to always say,
I'll be interested to see what goes on with Cook, but Thielen's going to be out. Yeah,
Thielen. Darisaw is probably going to be out, which means they have their shifted around offensive line again.
Yep.
But they don't give up a lot of sacks, and neither do the Steelers. But they both defenses get a lot of sacks. So lots of stuff like that'll go into this game. We're going to break it all down a little bit more tomorrow night on the Steelers preview. Notice I said that tomorrow night. That's Wednesday. We will be going early in the preview. I'm going to say we're going around 7:00. I don't know that that's definite. That's the best time for me. So I'll put that out there and then tell Brian and Jeff. I announced it on Scobro. We have to go at 7. No, because
for those out there listening or watching on this, by the way, that is a total Dave move.
Yeah.
He's pulled stuff like that since we were kids. That's exactly Dave's way of thinking.
Come on. You talk about me pulling stuff when we were kids. What would you do? You would use me all the time to get what you wanted. You would always send me to talk to mom and dad because I was more likely to get the yes. You would do it.
Of course I sent you because you were more likely to get the yes. You were the baby. They never said no to you.
Well, it's not that they never said no, but they were a lot more likely to say yes to me than anyone else.
What are you talking about? I still do that, by the way, with our parents. Except now I don't send you. Okay?
You sent Kyle.
I did this yesterday. I sent Kyle.
You know what? My own kids do that with their youngest, especially with my wife.
Once in a while, our mom listens to these. I hope she listens to these because she'll probably, it wasn't so much at her, it was at her dad yesterday that I did this. Mom will know what it was and she'll laugh.
Yeah, our parents finally got good internet so they can actually watch our show.
Yeah.
So we have to be a little bit more careful with what we say. So with that, that was a lot of fun. We've got to get the scores because we got to give everyone their chance to say their scores. We've got 128 people in the live chat right now. People are going to be ready to put in their scores. So get it ready, cue it up, type it in. Don't hit send. Don't press send. Don't press send. Okay. Wait until I put the thing in the live chat and say that it's there, because we let Rich go first without being influenced by anyone else. And then we will read all of yours as fast as we can. If you don't say a team, we assume it's Steelers. So if you just want to put numbers to go faster, you can. Okay. But Rich, what do you have for a score and a winner for Thursday night?
All right. So the large majority of the Steelers games this year have been close. Okay. Yes. Minnesota has lost 7 games this year, all by less than 1 score.
Yeah.
This game will be close.
Mm-hmm.
Steelers pull it out 24-21.
You're going with my score from last week.
Yes.
So it was the other way, 24-20. And you know, that's kind of interesting how those numbers play out. I'll tell you about that later. So there's your score. It is in the live chat. It is in there for you to get your scores, and they're probably going to all pop up at once and overwhelm me, and that's okay. This is the favorite part of the show for Rich because he loves seeing me butcher names. But
you'll get the first one right. So go.
We'll get the first one. It already jumped ahead. Okay. Steel Dog 88, 27-24 Steelers. TJ breaks Harrison's sack record. They're tied right now at 16. TJ's played in 10 games. He's at 16 sacks.
And actually 2 of those 10 games were only partials.
Yes, exactly. But if he keeps his average in games he actually plays, and he plays the last 5 games, that would be 8 sacks. That's the NFL record. NFL record's 22.5. He's got a chance at it. And they're like, 17 games. He won't. The most games TJ can play this year is 15. So We'll see how that goes. So sorry that I'm letting lots of scores come in the live chat. George Teston, go ahead, say it.
16 for the Steelers, Vikings 6.
Okay, 16-6. All right. Brian Brown says 27-18 Steelers. Derek Watt scores a TD. That would be great. BF Bud. I got to make sure BF Bud is getting a hold on me because I want to make sure he's doing well in that Cleveland game in January. Okay, 26-24 late field goal by the boss.
He's going to that Cleveland game in January?
Yeah.
Is he?
Yeah.
Bud, catch up with me. I'm going to that game in January.
Hey, there you go. There you go. All right. Well, I'm going to the Tennessee game, so I'll be talking about that more next Tuesday. Okay. Yep. Steelers, Pittsburgh, 20-14. Steelers, Reginald Rivers, 31-21 Steelers. Steeler Chick 46, 28-7. Sorry, Steelers 28, Vikings 17. Want to say that as good as we can, making sure that people are, I want to actually read scores. Tyler W, 28-24. Steelers, Bad Itch says
you missed one.
Did I? Okay, well,
yeah, go ahead.
You bring it up after this one. Yep. Says 17-9 Steelers. What's the
one? Sorry, he buried it in the middle of stuff.
Did he? I looked through it and I didn't see the score. Wes. Okay. So he's got a 17-13 in there.
17-13 Pittsburgh. TJ Watt strips that leads to the offensive touchdown.
Yeah,
I could see that.
Okay, I could see that. And it says going to be sluggish for both teams. I could see that.
I could see that as well.
I'm going to address some of that on Stat Geek Thursday morning. So make sure you guys tune into that one. If you're in the live chat and you don't listen to the audio only, make sure you go do that. Check us out anywhere you get podcasts. Okay, we both hit at the same time. Lumberjack, stop it! Lumberjack 94, 24-10 Steelers. I like the hashtag Bads Beehive. Okay. Brian Blackstock, 27-20 Steelers. He says Muth goes in twice. That's not a crazy thought. Okay. Is that knee or is that nay? I'm going to say nay. Nay Drews or Nadrews. Okay. 31-17 Steelers. Pinot Bourdon, I'm going to say 34-23. Then he gave another score of 12-19, but I don't know which one to trust. M. Marcus 39, Steelers 27-17. Monster 19, 24-21 Steelers. Same as you, Rich. Minnesota kicker Shanks' time expires as usual.
That's hilarious.
That'd be funny. Thanks, Mean Joe says Steelers 24-18. Terry Tanner says 28-17 Steelers. Nat Stuffco says 9-6 Steelers. See, to me, I think if it's a sloppy game, it could even lead to more scores because who's going to be sloppy? The offense or the defense? You just never know. Right. Harold Montgomery says 20-10 Steelers. Oh, sorry. Harold Montgomery the second says 20-10 Steelers. Okay. Outside Steelers fan says good guys 34-30. Wow. 34-30. Whew. Jerry Cherry Band says Steelers win 16-6 like Super Bowl 9. I like that one. D's NSOM 23-14 Steelers and Harris over 100 yards rushing. That would be nice. BF Bud says he'll hit you up for that game. BMK, Bully Bob Kennel, 24-17 Steelers. John Loof, 16-9 Steelers. D says he'll be at the Tennessee game too. 122, section 122. 122 row Q. That's the crew.
Just get come, to 122. Come check it out. You'll see, Dave.
You can't miss me. You can't miss me. Okay. Dandy Don Houcher. I'll say Houcher. 31, 34, or 38 Steelers. I guess he's saying 34 or 38. Yeah, sure. All right. He doesn't know if it's going to be by 3 or by 7. I see what you're saying now. Okay. Tyler W. did ask a good question. Is this the last primetime game for the season? No. Monday Night Football against
the Browns.
It'll only be, I think, the second Monday night game in NFL history because you don't usually get Monday night games in week 17 because there was only 17. The only time they've had a Monday night game in January, I think, was in 2001 when they had to move the season back a week. I'm not sure. I'll have to go back and check that at some point. JDA delete, or is that Jada delete? Jada.
Maybe.
Thank you.
I don't know.
We'll see. Okay. 27-13. Can't lose to Zimmer. There you go. George OTJ 27-16 Steelers. And I think that's all the numbers that we have there. So, that was a lot. That was a good time. We've really run over, but we had a lot to break down from this game. This was a great game, but guess what?
Sorry, bad.
Yeah, sorry, bad.
I had to apologize, bad.
Yeah. The Steelers still have work to do. Okay. Great win. This is not the conclusion season. This isn't your high point. The Steelers have work to do. This can't be the high point of your season. It has to be the start of the rise.
Yeah.
It's not the peak. It's the point of the rising action of what's going to be this season. With 5 games left, this is a great time to be on that incline. Great time to then just take that on, rise up, play well against good opponents. And that way, if you can get to the postseason, you'll be one of those teams that will be reckoned with. Make sure you are checking out BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. And if you're only listening to us on YouTube and Facebook Live, really, seriously, check out the audio-only shows. They're really good shows. I mean, Let's Ride it's the flagship. It is a great podcast that Jeff Hartman puts out on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Make sure you check that out. I've got my Stat Geek on Thursdays, Live Mike on Tuesdays, lots of other stuff. If you go into like Apple Podcasts and subscribe, you'll get every episode to you. You won't have to worry about finding them. So I highly recommend that. But just thank you all for being here, being active in the live chat tonight. Those of you that were here live or those of you listening on podcast form, thank you. We really appreciate it. We love doing this, and we can't do it without you all. Rich, what do you want to say in some closing thoughts here?
All right, closing thoughts real quick since we've run over so late. Short week. It's tough.
It is.
Tough on the team. Tough on the fans.
Mm-hmm.
Thursday night games are not fantastic for everybody. However, the one great thing about that, we get Steeler football closer together.
Yep.
Don't have to wait so long. And you know what I think about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can't wait.